And we're acquiring. And we're acquiring. Let's see. Are we live yet? Are we live yet? Oh, yeah, we live. Okay, we are live. All right. Bear with me just a few minutes, folks. Just have to get some things out the way. Thank you all for all who are already watching. Pretty sure it's going to be an interesting post for this one going forward. But we'll shortly get this started. Momentarily. All right, good as we're getting. Sweet. So let's just go ahead and get this shindig on the road. All right, so today is date April 13th, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. Basically, it is a show that we try to take last week's events, all political and mostly sometimes local news, and also try to make sense out of this wonderful ride that we call life. I'm your host of the most, Will Buchanan, and on this show, this is an adult podcast, which means adult language may be used and things of graphic nature may be shown, so your discretion is advised. So let's just go ahead and get right on into it. So, the first two videos I'm going to show really are about, I guess the word now is receipts. You know, when they say I got receipts, you know, screenshots, or, you know, if you got caught up and someone's got screenshots of you or video or anything else incriminating that you don't want to know, and basically is used against you. But I think the word these days is called receipts. Well, there's a lot of people right now that are regretting that. One of them being Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens, as I call her, the Black Tomi Lahren. If you don't know who she is, trust me, you're not missing out a lot. But anyway, her own words got used against her, especially in Congress when they were able to play it. This is exactly what happened.
The minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hershinoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
It does, Mr. Liu. I know that Ms. Owens distanced herself from those comments later, but we expressed great concern over the original comments.
Now, for all those who are wondering what just happened, so there was a congressional committee this week over white nationalism, which is kind of funny that the Republicans chose a black person to use her comments to defend white nationalism, because Candace Owens has famously sat there and said, as you have heard, that she defends Hitler. Now, of course, she turns around and she distances herself from those comments, but there is nothing dumber than having your own words played in front of you and you have to defend them. And I've always said it best, whatever you say in life, stand on it and defend it. Those are your words. Now, that does also mean you accept the consequences that come with them, just like I would do with anything that I say or do. But it's amazing that it's interesting where she said that says, I don't see a problem with Hitler. Sure, you don't see any problem with a mass genocide person that pretty much wants to turn the world into one big country, but he's a nationalist, so that's okay. No, it is completely asinine and crazy, and the simple fact of the matter that a person has to play it for other people to defend it is amazing to me. But again, who are we talking about? You know, and the funny thing is, when a black person says that Hitler wasn't a mass genocidal person, they somehow get fame. I don't know how that works. Maybe it's just all Fox News. But she's not the only one that actually got caught in hot water. Our current president, Baby Huey, has to defend himself as well because he said something about WikiLeaks, and we're going to get into the whole Julian Assange thing later. But he said this about WikiLeaks, and now all of a sudden he forgets what he said.
Think about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing.
I love reading those WikiLeaks.
This WikiLeaks is like a treasure trove. WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks.
You look at WikiLeaks. In China, if this would happen, the people would get a bullet through their head within 24 hours. As far as I'm concerned, it's spying, it's espionage. In the old days, if you were a spy, you'd get the death penalty.
And yep. And who also can forget this? Now, the reason why WikiLeaks is such a major thing right now is because Julian Assange, who used to run WikiLeaks, has been arrested on espionage charges. Anybody that remembers Donald Trump's crazy-ass candidacy was that he kept saying almost every other time, I love WikiLeaks, I love WikiLeaks, I can't stop reading WikiLeaks. And now he's saying, I don't. See, it's a whole thing of, like I said, when you sit there and say things that, are going to come back to haunt you, this is a prime example. I mean, aside from the fact he has to defend himself because now Julian Assange may actually be extradited to the U.S. for espionage, now he has to defend the fact that, yes, you use WikiLeaks and there is a chance that you may have also known, if we ever get the unredacted Mueller report, there is a chance that you may have actually known what WikiLeaks was doing, or I should say in this case, what Julian Assange was doing, because Michael Cohen was in the room, who testified that you knew. But that's here nor there because the Mueller report is still a hot water topic because, as far as we know, there's only two people in the world that have seen it. Robert Mueller and William Barr, which he's doing a wonderful job of covering up Trump's mistakes. But anyway, speaking of Baby Huey, as we'll keep on him, he may have actually said some things, and this is another thing which is also interesting that I want to play first because basically it'll explain itself.
Exclusive breaking news. President
Trump, I am told, raised the prospect of a pardon to a top official if this official broke immigration laws. Senior administration officials tell me that during the president's visit to the border at Calexico, California, 1 week ago today, he told border agents to block asylum seekers from entering the U.S., which is contrary to U.S. law. We brought you that story earlier in this week, but now we're telling you that the president then went even further. Two officials briefed on the exchange say the president told Kevin McAleenan, then head of Customs and Border Protection, now the acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, that he, the president, would pardon McAleenan if McAleenan ever went to jail for denying entry to migrants, as one of the officials paraphrased. It was not clear if the president was joking or was serious. I asked the White House for a comment. They referred me to the Department of Homeland Security. A DHS spokesman told me the president has never directed the acting secretary to do anything illegal. President Trump's apparent lack of commitment to staying within the bounds of immigration law has been a constant theme in recent weeks. In fact, we also have some additional breaking news on the proposal President Trump has now confirmed he's considering transporting undocumented immigrants and releasing them in sanctuary cities, places which limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. The president tweeted earlier today, quote, "We are indeed, as reported, giving strong considerations to placing illegal immigrants in sanctuary cities. Only the radical left always seems to have an open border, open arms policy, so this should make them very happy," unquote. Breaking right now on CNN, even though President Trump is pushing this today, administration lawyers told the White House months ago there are serious legal problems with this proposal. In February, according to documents I obtained, DHS General Counsel John Mitnick told the White House in writing that transporting and releasing migrants far from where they were apprehended could only happen if there were a, quote, strong mission-related rationale, unquote, such as providing medical care for the migrants or overcrowding at a facility. That rationale does not include political retribution or trying to make a political point, which is what the president made clear in his tweet is his rationale. The general counsel, Mr. Mitnick, also noted that this proposal could be self-defeating, that transporting an undocumented immigrant to a place where he or she has no ties could increase the chances that that individual would become a flight risk and skip deportation proceedings. Another warning to the White House from General Counsel Mitnick: do this and there will be lots of lawsuits because this would violate, theoretically, the due process rights of the migrants, or at least that would be the charge. One senior administration official told me that, quote, once the lawyers explained it, the issue was ultimately dropped, unquote, back in February. Until today, of course, when President Trump just tweeted it out.
All that what was just said. It is literally like watching. I admit it's like watching a train wreck. Sometimes it's just all of that at once. So let's start from the beginning on this. So he was reportedly going to allow the Department of Immigration head to sit there and say, "Hey, if you stop people from coming in, and you get brought up on charges, okay, I'll pardon you." Allegedly, there's still not a report out there that says it, but it's a whole other thing of him actually suggesting it. And let's just be honest, Trump has thrown around the word pardon quite a lot. He threw it around with Michael Cohen. He threw it around with Paul Manafort. He threw it around with Michael Floyd. He threw it around. When it comes to his family, he threw it around. He even asked the Department of Justice himself, can he pardon himself? So obviously he's infatuated with the word and action of pardon. So it's not too far off from belief that he may actually turn around and use it to get certain people out that do his bidding. Like I said, he usually surrounds himself with a whole bunch of yes men. So he really shouldn't be surprised by that. Now, the other side of it all was that he is going to let these what they call sanctuary cities, which are cities that will take in immigrants and help them, assist them, no questions asked. He wants to overrun those sanctuary cities to prove his point. I think that is a little bit dictatorish, because all you're going to do is give those sanctuary cities exactly what they're asking for, because records have shown high immigration in most cities actually have the most jobs. Jobs are produced, economy goes up in those areas, and the cities and states are better. Don't believe me? Look at Denver, look at Colorado, look at California, look at Texas. Texas, New Mexico, and California alone have benefited from immigrants. Not to say that most of the Eastern Seaboard has as well. So you're basically going to put more immigrants in areas to where cities will welcome them. That's like pretty much putting workers in areas that places will love to have them. It makes no sense. At the same time, what he's also doing is can also be along the lines of obstruction of justice, and I'll tell you why. Because you're basically telling someone to break the law, but you're also going to pardon them for breaking the law. Now, I know we've thrown around the word obstruction of justice a lot, but let's be honest. He's doing it. It is there. This is not the only time this has happened. But we all know that when it comes to impeachment and when it comes to articles of impeachment, it takes both houses. And Turtle McConnell right now in the Senate is pretty much the gatekeeper from us getting rid of Trump, which is sad and disheartening at the same time, because the question I'll start asking is, when can we impeach the Speaker of the Senate? I mean, where along the lines can that happen? That's what I'd like to know. Because McConnell really hasn't done anything except obstruct everything, but everything that he wants, he railroads through. So, where's the impeachment process for removing someone from the Senate? That's my question. But again, it's just amazing to me how Trump, he has this hard-on. Forgive me for saying this. Trump has a hard-on for immigrants. He really does. I don't understand why. It's almost like I'm along lines it's almost like I want to say he has something against brown people, which he probably does, but at the same time, he thinks that immigrants are this, that, and the other. I'm like, wait a minute, your family's immigrants. Your father came here from Germany. Your grandmother came here from Poland. You yourself dodged everything but tax evasion yet. But it's amazing to me. It's like your whole family came from immigrants. So what is it? And yet you're going against immigrants? That makes no sense. But then again, I shouldn't really expect a lot from Baby Huey, aside from the fact that he'll misremember, he'll say this, he'll say that, and honestly, he reminds me of a guy that's reaching those stages of dementia, which slurred speech, awkward talking, just goes off in different subjects, and then tries to pretend he's normal. Yeah, I think the banana is starting to finally show through the skin. But like I said, this whole week has just seemed to be everything that Trump has tried to undo, and he did undo one thing, and it unfortunately became law as of yesterday.
Limits on military service for transgender individuals now in effect.
One of our national institutions will be turning back the clock on equality, shutting its doors to people who have already proven their ability to do the job.
The policy largely requires service members and those wishing to join the military to adhere to the standards associated with their biological sex. Additionally, transgender individuals already receiving hormones or surgery related to gender transition are now banned from joining the military. The president tweeting about the proposed ban nearly 2 years ago.
It's been a very confusing issue for the military, and I think I'm doing the military a great favor.
Democratic lawmakers rallying in Washington earlier this week showing their support for transgender service members.
The president continues to exploit fear and bigotry, and the transgender military ban is just another example of his hateful policies.
Exempt from the policy, those already openly serving, those who have initiated the process of transition or received a gender dysphoria diagnosis prior to April 12th.
Where I initially was planning to, spend several months probably, really just taking my time and figuring out what I wanted to do and figuring out my identity, suddenly turned into this crazy race where I was really just doing everything I could to get the diagnosis done in time.
A federal judge lifted the final injunction on the ban last month. However, 4 outstanding lawsuits will proceed with the plaintiffs arguing the ban is unconstitutional. Mark Remillard, ABC News, New York.
Now obviously it's sad. There's no other way around. There's no other real way around it. There's no really other way to say it aside from what I just tried to say. There's no really way to say this except for it's sad. Here's the thing. Anybody that wants to serve, regardless of your orientation, regardless of how you identify, if you want to serve, knock yourself out. Because that to me, no matter how you put it, and I've heard this many times, you say serving is a privilege, and the thing about it is, regardless of an individual, if they want to serve in our armed forces, hey, I'm all for it. I'm not going to stop them from doing that. Now also because historically, just like black people and women, black people, women and men of color and different ethnicities had to fight just to be recognized in the armed forces. So we know how it feels like to have to fight to be as equal as them, even under fire. So again, if a man who identifies himself as a woman wants to fight in the armed forces, to me it's like, all right. Here's my thing. I've never really understood gender identity to be such an issue. If a man identifies himself as a woman, all right. If a woman identifies herself as a man, cool. As long as it's an adult making that decision, then I am not going to knock it. Once they made that decision, they stick with it, cool. Let's keep it pushing. In my mind, it's like I have literally no time to sit back and try to figure out why they chose that decision. And again, it's almost like when you got the guy in the foxhole right next to you, as long as they can defend you, be it man or a woman who thinks he's a man or a man that thinks he's a woman, if they can defend you in a foxhole, cool. That should be the end of it. But like I said, I don't know what it is, because I still, what the funny part is, I have still yet to meet the opposition on that. I still want to meet someone and have a conversation with someone who's on the opposite end of that discussion, because I want to know their reasoning. It's almost like you wouldn't allow women to serve in the Marines. Why? You'll let women become drill sergeants, you'll let women do all these other things, but again, it's almost like, so transgenders want to serve. Let them serve. There's no harm in that. Hey, trans, what's going on, man? But yeah, it's that whole thing of what I just don't get is you literally and figuratively want to block individuals from serving. And troop records are already low. And now you're about to reduce them even lower. So it's amazing to me where it's kind of funny where baby Huey in the office still wants to turn around and still make this about, he wants to make this about, well, we just want to remove the confusion. again, if I ever get the chance to talk to somebody on the opposite side of that subject, I really want to know what is so confusing about that. They already told you what they declare themselves to be. My thing is, do they have the skills to cover my back under fire? That's what I'm worried about. I can care less. I honestly could care less about who they identify as. That is with them. But for me, I just need to know if you can cover my back. Simple as that. But it is amazing to me where a lot of people feel differently, and I still to this day want to know, when I hopefully get talked to one, I really want to know why they feel that way, aside from the fact they just might be a little xenophobic. But speaking of that, speaking of weirdest things to happen, because as Trump has turned around and the ban has went into place, he's also going to put more troops along the Mexican border.
Washington, big revelation coming out of
the White House on the border battle. The Trump White House pushed for the transfer of detained immigrants to the streets of sanctuary cities like San Francisco to punish political rivals. Immigration officials pushed back on the plan, calling it illegal and unwise. Our chief White House correspondent John Carl has the story. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. It sounds...
And I just realized that was the same one. I'm sorry. Well, basically, that video is just a repeat of them entering sanctuary cities. But part of that, which I did not catch in the video, I apologize, but let me go ahead and say it. It's the whole thing about putting more troops on the border. There's already almost 4,000 troops. 4,000 active duty forces and 2,100 National Guardsmen. That's literally over 6,000. Literally a little over 6,000 troops that are actually on the Mexican border right now. 6,000 troops. That is literally 1/3 of what we already have in Iraq, and maybe 1/3 of what we currently have in Iraq is currently sitting on the U.S.-Mexican border. Because currently in Iraq and Afghanistan, we still have at least a little over 9,000 troops. So literally having almost 6,000 troops is literally more than a third over what's already overseas. And again, I'm asking myself the question, why is it needed? Why? For a border? And the whole thing about it is, this is why I say this is going to be Baby Huey's hill to die on. Because again, he has something against Mexico, which I find interesting, because most of his hotel is actually run by illegal immigrants. So again, it's like in his relatives, which he made them American citizens, no questions asked. So again, the whole infatuation with Mexico just makes me wonder. It's like, why are we feeding, I guess in this case, why are we actually feeding the interest of racists? This is the only way I can think about it. We're feeding the interest of racists. We don't want any more immigrants across our border. Everybody here who's not Native American is an immigrant. Just be honest. Everybody that's like, unless you're Native American, you're an immigrant here. So it's amazing that we as immigrants are going to sit there and tell other people that, want to immigrate over here that they can't, because they're from a certain country. But, we're not going to say the same thing to Canada. We're not going to say the same thing to Australia, China, Japan, even good old Russia, which no one ever questions, but we're not going to say that, which amazes me to this day how that is possible. But again, it's just his fascination with brown people that just make you think that, yeah, he is a racist. That's the only other thing I can come up with. But moving this train right along. Also, other bad news is that Ohio's pretty much added themselves to a very special list. Which, if you're a woman in Ohio right now, you're not gonna like what this dude's about to sign into law.
This bill today is consistent
with that respect for life and the imperative to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Okay.
So for all those that clapped that bullshit, let me actually explain what just happened. So Ohio, you'll probably guys about a week, 2 weeks back, I did report that Ohio was debating about a fetal heartbeat bill. Now, the fetal heartbeat bill is basically a way to get around abortion. Now, of course, abortion, if you haven't noticed, is pretty much still a hot topic, no matter who you talk to. But there have been ways that have been trying to fight the Roe versus Wade. And the way it's been trying to be fought is that you couldn't repeal it. You can't repeal it because Roe versus Wade, for a lot of people that don't understand, it made abortion a legal, safe practice. Because beyond hand, abortion really didn't have any legislation. Women can just go and get it done, and nobody questioned it. But until a lot of so-called pro-lifers decided that okay, something is wrong with this, and decided to be decided to fight it, was the only reason why Roe versus Wade became a Supreme Court landmark decision and allowed legal abortion, which made abortion legal. So now that you got the history part out the way. Several states have found another way around that, which is basically the fetal heartbeat. Now, for fetal heartbeats, for those who understand, if a fetal heartbeat can be detected in an ultrasound, then that means that that the abortion cannot be allowed, because for a lot of pro-lifers, that is the beginning of life. So, of course, because it's a signed law, it does mean that this will be fought in legal courts. Now, to just give a short synopsis on this, I've always said it best about abortion. I will always be pro-choice. The reason why I'm pro-choice is because the simple fact of the matter is, it's not a complicated argument. A woman's body is her own right. She can do whatever she wants. The actions and consequences will follow her and her alone. I will still sleep well at night because it's her decision. Now, imagine, and I try that place, and people say, well, what about the baby? What about all this? And I go to my famous George Carlin bit when they talk about pro-lifers. You're not pro-life, you're pro-birth. Because you're only pro-life until the child is born. But then what happens? Nobody wants a child. The child goes into adoption. And then he's going through the system until he's 18. And then once he's 18, he's kicked out the system. And he's only got a few choices. Go homeless or go in the army. And if he goes in the army, you care for him again. Because you're all about the soldiers. Until they come back fucked up and drugged up. And then you pass them off as drunks. You're not pro-life. You're pro-birth. Simple as that. And it's amazing to me how many times I've tried to explain that. And I said a woman's body is her own choices. And it is amazing to me that individuals will still sit there and be like, well, what if I got her pregnant? What if I'm the man and I got her pregnant? Don't I got a say in it? No. You don't have a, let me be really clear about that. You as a man don't have a say in a pregnancy until that baby is born. If she chooses not to have the child, that's her body. She can choose whether or not to have it. You can argue from sun up to sundown, but that baby's only coming out of one person, and it's not you. So it is amazing to me now with all these fetal heartbeat bills that are out there, which there's only a very few. It's like 4 states, I believe, because Tennessee, my own state, tried it. It went dead in the water. Ohio, I want to say Ohio, Alabama. It's all southern states, which is actually kind of funny. Ohio, Alabama, North Carolina, Florida, and I'm nearly certain Texas, but I have to look into that. So I know right now there's 5 states that have the fetal heartbeat bill that's been signed to law. There's actually a few of them that actually have that. So it's amazing to me now where it's you can't help but just want to sit there and just go, you couldn't beat the abortion rule. You couldn't beat the abortion law. So now you're going to turn around and you're going to say, well, if I can't beat it, we're going to find another way to get around it, which is still amazing to me. But like I said, I have yet to find a pro-life person to sit there and make sense out of their argument, because I've always said it best. If that child is born, who's going to take care of it if the parent doesn't want it? And at the time, are you really going to force women? It's like the whole time you understand, you are literally forcing women to do what you want with their body. And if you don't find that a little fucked up, something is truly wrong with you. That's just me. But moving right along as far as other things that are just really crazy. You guys will probably remember that last week I did post about the churches in Louisiana, the 3 historic black churches that were burned down all within a week of each other, and how I sat there and said, historically, whenever black churches are burned, that, look, history seems to repeat itself. Whenever historical black churches get burned, find the white guy. Well, I ain't wrong.
Who was arrested is Holden Matthews, a 21-year-old white male from here
in St. Landry Parish. At this point, though, I do want to point out that we have no reason to believe that the 3 fires here in St. Landry Parish are related to the fire in Caddo Parish at the Vivian United Pentecostal Church.
We all know by now Holden's father is an employee of mine, fine man. He was shocked and hurt, as any father would be. And my heart went out to him yesterday when we notified him to come in. And I talked to him, and the news was broke to him. He was in terrible shape.
We're still vetting several motives. However, information that the investigators have uncovered is that Matthews had offered, through suggestions and connections, a relationship with a type of music called black metal and its association in history with church burnings in other parts of the world, which have been documented in movies and books. Any question of potential motives are going to go to the federal authorities.
So so first off, glad not to be wrong, because like I said, it was actually the son of a Louisiana officer, which not surprising, but again, a white male. And what bothered me was that, like with most white males that do things like this, which I call them terrorist actions, they always seem to I'm not going to say have a blame for their actions, but try to sit there and say, well, I was influenced by this, like that. Like, you know, the Columbine shooters were influenced by Call of Duty, violent video games, which, as an avid video game player, I call bullshit on that, because I played plenty of games that were graphic, that were violent, that were just brutalistic. You don't see me going out there and shooting up places or burning down places. So again, that whole argument of violent video games is asinine. I said I will defend music the same way, because I'm an avid music fan. I listen to everything. I'm very eclectic. I'm very eclectic when it comes to music. But I've never actually heard black metal. I've heard, you know, your metal music, your heavy metal, but I've never heard black metal. So I was actually interested to see what black metal was. And what I didn't know was that black metal is like the black sheep of heavy metal music, which I didn't know. Which is it kind of goes along the routes of, you know, anti-Christian, satanic, and paganistic, as it's been described. But it's but some of the artists that were into black metal did actually cause damage. Now, does that mean that the entire genre of black metal is dangerous? That I don't think so, because again, to me this is just another way of a so-called terrorist explaining their actions to humanize. If you just black metal actually didn't have any racist tendencies. It's just the people that are about it. It's almost the same sense like the Florida video game competition for Madden, and it was in Tampa last year, where they had a Madden tournament, and the guy lost. The guy leaves the tournament, comes back in with a gun, shoots everybody. Now, is anybody blaming the game for actually treating this man this way, or we should be surprised about the fact this man already had a nearby weapon available to come in and spew his hatred all over the place and kill people? That's why I said I can't blame black metal. Now, granted, I've never listened to any black metal. I just did actually just a short research on it, but I can't find where an actual black metal. It's hard to find to say where black metal and influence goes into, but I say from looking at it, I don't think black metal had anything to do with this kid. I think this kid just wanted an excuse, because, like I said, when it comes down to it, it's all about humanizing. It is literally and figuratively all about humanizing. Honestly, a person that doesn't need to be humanized. They should be shown for what they are. We should go from there on that, because they're basically showing us their best side. But again, I just find that just utterly freaking crazy is what I find. But aside from that, though, another thing that was crazy is because, like I said, going back to the fact of the matter is that we can't accept certain things. Representative Ilhan Omar, which for a lot of people that do know, because she was the one that spoke out about the pro-Israelite groups that are influencing Congress as far as making sure that Israel is taken care of and saved. Well, she's actually still under fire for other comments, which we'll go ahead and play now.
Democratic Congressman Representative Ilhan Omar, one of the country's first Muslim women elected to Congress, has been at the center of a firestorm before, but now she's reigniting a controversy over comments she made about the September 11th terrorist attack. Now, the remarks came last month when Omar was speaking at an event for the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CAIR, in Los Angeles. She inaccurately said the group was founded as a result of 9/11. Take a listen.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Now, CARE was actually founded in 1994, well before the terrorist attacks. Some conservative commentators have sharply criticized Omar's remarks, not because she got that date wrong, but rather accusing her of downplaying the 9/11 attacks. One commentator even questioning the Congresswoman's loyalty to the United States. Now, Omar responded overnight on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. I am as American as everyone else is.
As I said, Omar has sparked backlash in the past. In fact, shortly after taking office, she was admonished by Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for making comments that some felt were anti-Semitic. Omar did apologize at the time, and she told Colbert overnight, quote, "When you tell me that you are pained by anything I say, I will always listen and I will acknowledge your pain." Hoda?
All right, Kristen. Wow, Kristen, thank you.
Uh-oh. Okay, so like I said, when it comes to Reverend Ilhan Omar, it's interesting because I've yet to still find where she said something that was incorrect. I really have. I mean, she pointed out the fact that most groups are really are influencing Congress through money. She sat there and said it's all about the Benjamins. She wasn't wrong. Now, granted, she did get the CARE date wrong as far as it, being started in 1994. It really wasn't started in 2000. It was started in 2001. That being excuse me, and it wasn't started post 2011. Sorry about that. But the thing about it is just that she's not. I mean, it's easy. It's funny because she is a Muslim woman that's under. She's one of two Muslim congresswomen that are actually in the House. It amazes me so how quickly conservatives want to sit there and say, well, we don't need Muslims, we don't need this. And I'm like, every time I hear we don't need Muslims here, my mind goes to fill in other blanks of what they would also say. We don't need women here, we don't need black men here, we don't need Mexican people here. And that sounds very, very racist. But then again, these are the very same people that will allow Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu to come in, and they will turn around and still give Israel, and I cannot make this up, every year the U.S. gives Israel $74 billion in foreign aid. $74 billion. And what do we get out of it? I mean, aside from the fact that we're still intersecting ourselves with this Middle Eastern war between the Palestinians and the Israelites over a simple piece of land that we got nothing to deal with. But we're turning around and giving this country money and we're not asking for it back. And I'm thinking to myself, and you guys got the stones to sit there and talk about her pointing this mess out? And on top of that, she was right. Now, it's like I always said it best, all Muslims are not bad. Just the same way all Christians are not bad. You have a few extremists out there that will use religion to basically justify the actions they're doing. That being said, it's not always all of them. What she tried to point out, it's not always all of them. So in this case, all of them should not be treated as such. So it's amazing as she's trying to make sense, they're trying to sit there and point at the fact, well, she's female, she's a Muslim, she's got to go. Again, we really should be surprised about the good old boy mentality that's still in the White House. But moving right along for the last stories I got. I like this story out of Georgetown because it's something I never thought would actually happen, but I find it very interesting that it did. Let me just play it so you guys get the idea.
Its oldest Catholic university has been around almost as long as the country itself. The school's history includes a period in which it owned slaves. Now Georgetown students have voted to pay money to the descendants of those slaves, what is called reparations. Chip Reed has more.
Georgetown University currently has an endowment of $1.5 billion, but in 1838 it was nearly broke, so the Jesuit priests who ran the school sold 272 slaves, including Frank Campbell, to pay off its debts. Georgetown students voted 66 to 34% in favor of a new fee of $27.20 per semester, money that would benefit descendants of those 272 slaves.
We've all benefited from the sales of these slaves previously, and I think that we have a duty now to show our responsibility in the fact that we did benefit from them.
Freshman Henry Dye helped lead the opposition to the referendum.
You say it's slap in the face at liberty. Yes. What do you mean by that?
I believe in the importance of individual liberty, but I don't believe we should morally impose our values on other students.
Whether the fee is implemented is now up to the university, which said in a statement, "Our students are contributing to an important national conversation." It has become a national conversation on the presidential campaign trail for some Democrats, including New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
I support reparations.
Some of the Georgetown students who helped organize the referendum say winning the vote is just the first step. Georgetown junior Shepard Thomas is a descendant of the slaves who were sold.
And as we go forward, our initiative will be to challenge the university to do something.
In its written statement, Georgetown said, quote, "This student referendum provides valuable insight into student perspectives, but it gave no indication as to whether it plans to give the students what they're demanding." Jeff?
All right, Chip Reed at Georgetown Tonight.
Now, I gotta be honest. Granted, the story itself, amazing. That students are recognizing about college students, of course, at a very prestigious university, are actually recognizing slavery reparations and how they can actually pay it back to former descendants, former slaves. I never thought to this day I'd see that. I mean, we've heard slavery reparations, we've heard it talked about. We've always, it's amazing, how you can pay, reparations were paid to the Jewish people, to the people of Auschwitz. It's that whole thing of it amazes me so where it's been done multiple times. It is amazing to me now that that really, when it comes to the whole idea of reparations, that there is a coalition at Georgetown University that is actually trying to do just that. And yeah, it's not official yet, but I like the fact that it's actually gaining traction. And of course, you're going to have opposition. You're going to have those that are going to come in and say, well, I wasn't a part of that decision. I just came here to get my education. I wasn't part of that decision. Why do I have to pay a $27.20 fee every semester? Well, the thing about it is you're always going to have opposition to everything. This is true. It's amazing to me now where it's like these kids have actually taken one step farther, and it's like we want to pay back those that have been wronged. And if the simple concept of paying back those who have been wronged, because I can go into a whole nother 2-3 hours about my people being wronged. I can go in that whole 2 or 3. I can go into a whole 3 hours of about slavery itself, and that the descendants that we come from, they never. I mean, the reparations are there, and it's not like Congress can't pay everybody. I mean, it's not like Congress can't pay everybody because had they not bought a $1.5 trillion deal about getting a new fighter jet we didn't need, you could turn around and send every American to college tuition free for the next 20 years. So it's not like the money is a problem. It's the fact of the matter is that it's omitted. It's coming down to admitting it. Just like they didn't want to admit there was a plan to kill Martin Luther King. There was a plan to kill Malcolm X. There was a plan to kill the Muslim Brotherhood, Louis Farrakhan specifically. There were plans to destroy black neighborhoods. Not just the crack cocaine wave that started in L.A. The simple fact of the matter is they would have to go back and admit that systematically they tried to take out a ethnicity. And to do so would mean omittance, because omittance usually means compensation. And they don't want to do that, because that would mean they have to admit that yes, that part of your history try to erase our history, and by any means necessary. But the last story I got, because I always say I always end it with good news. Good news because the world of doom and gloom, we always need something that makes us positive, makes us look forward to it, gives us a little hope. And I love the story out of New Jersey because whoever this principal is, he's got the right idea about education. I'll show you what I mean.
There's a high school hallway packed with
kids. Nothing unusual about that, but full of youngsters on a Friday night at 9 o'clock. Hundreds of kids who don't have to be here. You'd think this would be the last place they'd want to be. But here in Newark, they're in here because of what's out there.
Anything that keeps me off the street, I'll do. Like, besides doing anything wrong, like selling drugs and all that stuff. I'm not into that.
If I come here, I would see, like, friendly faces. Gun violence, like, out there. They fighting, being shot.
Inside the walls of West Side High, every Friday night until 11 p.m., it's a space free of fear. Within these walls, kids can shoot pool, play video games, hit the hardwood, practice cheers, or even lay down track in a recording studio. Within these walls, they can laugh. It's called the Lights On program, now in its 4th year, and it's open to everyone. Nadia Camacho graduated in 2008.
If it was around back then, I think that we wouldn't have lost so many of my classmates. Like, if we have a class reunion now, a lot of my classmates wouldn't be there.
I haven't lost any more kids to gun violence since we started doing the school year.
Principal Akbar Cook says you can't ignore the results. If you remember him, that's because last summer, Eyewitness News told you about a free laundry room he installed in school. Students bullied because of dirty clothes, resulting in chronic absenteeism. Principal Cook says there's been a 10% increase in daily attendance since.
I was finding out just from being a principal that the kids don't eat during the weekends.
They also serve hot meals to kids on Friday nights. During the summer, they do this 3 nights a week. It's all made possible by donations from the community and alumni. It's kind of amazing what a school can become when people care about kids who just want a chance.
It's better than being out on the street.
In Newark, Seth Kim, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
And you can't, and it's like it was said, and that's why I said it was beautiful about that. And I love how he sat there and said at the very end, it's amazing what can be done when you have a principal and a community that cares. And I love that. I love that idea. I mean, it does take away from the YMCA's that we used to have. I mean, they're still around, but just not as apparent. And the after-school programs that kids used to have and things of that nature to keep off the streets. Though, and if there's anything that should be taken away from that, those programs work. Obviously, in New Jersey, because as you can see, it's a work. I mean, going on 4 years, that's impressive. But it's a working thing when you invest. And I've always said it best about education, and the reason why education is such in the toilet now is the whole thing about it is when you don't invest in the teachers, when you don't invest in the students, when you don't invest in the community as a whole, everything suffers. Usually it's the kids and education first. And love the fact they're doing it in New Jersey. I know there's other places out there that are doing their own thing as well, but I want to show that one off because the guy really said it best. When you invest in the educators and in the schools and the kids, things are bound to change. So again, that just gives me hope because maybe one day Tennessee will figure out instead of being progressively backwards because that's kind of their thing. But anyway, that's gonna be my show, guys, for this week. I do have another show that's gonna be on a little bit later today called Off Limits, in which we're going to tackle subjects that pretty much nobody would tackle, but like I said, the conversations that need to happen. That's gonna be happening a little bit later between 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. But beforehand, my other brother, Thomas, who will be here, we call him the Mountain Puncher. We'll have his To Be Determined podcast, which actually be going on at 3 p.m. Now, To Be Determined podcast is a fitness podcast. As you've probably seen Thomas, he is a person that's all about fitness in the gym. Always a guy that always wants to share his knowledge and things of that nature, his testimony and things that you can do to basically reach your zenith, which I hope to God he actually tells people what zenith is instead of just saying it. But anyway, To Be Determined podcast is every 3 p.m. And besides Thomas, one to yawn. My only other friends in here, as far as Trace, who's in here. Trace, who's watching this, also has podcasts of his own. He has The Bump Down, which is a musical podcast, which goes over what's hard the charts, what's hot and what's not, what's coming up on the underground, and also upcoming artists. And also, if you're an upcoming artist that wants your music played on The Bump Down, please reach out to Trace, DJ King Eddie Wayne, on Facebook, as well as to look him up. Help me out here, Trace, because are you on Spotify now? I think you're on Spotify now. If I'm not, please tell me differently in the comments. But But also with the bump down, he also has another show called The Smoke of Truth. As I like to call it, is an in-your-face, blunt, check your ego at the door podcast, because he is going to go into certain subjects that people may not like, but they need to talk about, because you need to be uncomfortable. You need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's what that podcast is about. A very unorthodox but very intelligent brother speaking his point of view. Smoke of Truth also as well. Another friend of mine who's not here, but probably is around somewhere, Vaughn. Avon's on Facebook, has several podcasts of his own. He actually has the I Get the Reference BST, which is a 30-minute podcast where he goes over just news and music and videos and video games and things that you might find interesting. Interactive show just like my own. He actually has Rhythmness, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, where he actually goes over musical albums and grade them to a 4-tier system. If you want to know what the 4-tier system is, you have to watch Rhythmness to find out. He also has Random as Fuck with Uncle BZ, which was actually earlier today. I missed it, unfortunately. Where I like to call it is the pool of ratchetness in which we dip our toes into to give us a little escape from life, something to laugh at, joke about, and just find the weird stuff. But again, also an interactive show. Now, all these shows can be found on our Facebook group. I Get That Reference. It is a group open to all, easy to join. The only thing we ask that you do participate, which means you are talking, being social, and just sharing what you know. And also, we actually have podcasts available on YouTube. So if you look up I Get That Reference, if you look up the Bump Down, if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up all of his podcasts, all these are actual YouTube pages to where you can like, share, and subscribe. And we try to keep all of our YouTube pages up to date. For the words that cannot escape me right now, I apologize. But that being said, I do have another podcast that's going to be coming out very soon. More along the lines of just a video game and software related, just really haven't found a title to it yet. But it will be a third podcast I'll be doing, just because I feel like from the IT side and from the computer side, from those that just want to know some certain things, especially for the video game side, because I'm an avid gamer myself, just giving different explanations on movies and stuff like that. But that's bound to... That name will have a name of itself. It's just a work in progress I'm trying to figure out. But aside from that, guys, How the Frack We Got Here is all about staying informed. Staying informed means not accepting everything at face value. It means that you're going out there and doing the research yourself, finding the actual truth, and then bringing it back to others to show what you found, to encourage them to do the same. Because an uninformed community can make a whole lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us trumped. And that's how the frack we got here. So from that, guys, thank you guys for all watching here. And if you're watching this on playback, just go ahead and comment as if it's live, because I will see it, because all you Trump supporters will let me know that as well. But aside from that, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm out. Peace.